Alright guys, hey, this is Joshua Lead and Iron, and I am coming to you to talk about this Apple event and all the different stuff they came up with, and I am super shocked at the things that they did come out with. The first thing I wanted to talk about was this studio display, and I know that it has like a price of $15.99, but you get 5K. I know a lot of people have been talking about that you can get the LG one and it's $300 less, but I just think this goes very well. It looks very nice, has the aluminum that matches. Aesthetically, it's a lot more pleasing, I would say. So it's a 27-inch Retina display with 5K, and it has 6 speakers that also do spatial audio, which kind of was crazy. It has a A13, I think, Bionic chip in it, so you can do center stage and run those 6 speakers and whatnot. And I think that was pretty cool. The next thing was the thing that excited me the most, and it was this Mac Studio right here. Now, just the base model alone, it's so amazing. It looks like a Mac Mini, but it just looks like maybe 2.5 or 3 Mac Minis stacked up together, which I guess still the small footprint, you can put it like next to your PlayStation 5 or whatever and still have tons of room. The base model comes with the M1 Max, which we found in the MacBook Pros, the new MacBook Pros that came in. But if you go up to the next tier up, which is the M1 Ultra, it starts off with 20 cores and goes up to 64 core GPU. Now, I know a lot of people may think that when you add more cores to the GPU that you're getting a lot of other things as well, but literally you're just getting, you don't get any more encoders or decoders, whatever. It's literally just the cores of the GPU. And there's been tons, and I mean tons of reviews on how just because you have more cores on your GPU doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting more usability, more function out of it. You're not getting any faster speeds or anything like that. It's literally just more cores. The base model, like I said, is 10 cores, which I think was 8 performance cores and 2 efficiency cores. And you can configure that up to 32 core GPU and 64 gigs of memory. And I think it comes standard with 32 gigs of memory and a 24 core GPU, I believe. Now, I want to kind of talk about these numbers, and their graphs are always just kind of like fast little blurps. And they kind of go over them real quick, and they just kind of say, hey, it's does 200 watts less, or it's just as fast with this much power, and they move on. So real world performance, I don't know if these numbers are going to be legit. I guess we're going to have to find out. I think this was really cool that it can support up to 4 XDR, so like the big boys, $5,000-$6,000 monitors that they have, and one 4K TV with the HDMI port. But the XDR displays are 6K, so you can do 4 of them. I think that was pretty cool. The M1 Ultra, it comes with 6 Thunderbolt 4 ports. So the 2 ports in the front on the base model are Type-C, 10 gigabits per second. Still pretty good, but the M1 Ultra is Thunderbolt 4, I think, which is like 40 gigabits a second, which is amazing. But it also comes with an amazing price tag, and you guys got to realize that. So I'm going to click right here into order now, and you're going to see that the base model, 10 core, 24 core, 16 core neural engine, so this base model right here, starts off at $19.99, and I know it sounds like it's a lot, but really, in all reality, it's really not. I think this is a very good value, and I especially think it's a very good value for people that are beginners like myself that can grow into, like I can literally probably grow into this as my skill levels grow, as my more knowledge comes in, using DaVinci Resolve, using Final Cut Pro, and learning all these new tricks that I'm going to bring along with you guys. But you get to kind of grow into this machine, and even if you held it on for 5 years, so you figure $2,000 divided by 5 years, which comes to about $400 a year for a machine that on paper is so much better than like a Windows desktop. And trust me, I'm not docking Windows desktops at all. As you can see behind me, I have Windows, GPUs, boards, everything. But as a base model, I think this started out very well. There's only one little gripe that I would probably look into, and that was probably start off with like a terabyte. If you're going to call this like a studio model and you're working with ProRes and photo editing and stuff like that, and especially with ProRes, because ProRes takes up a lot of storage. And I would say at least a terabyte. If you're going to call it a studio model, Start off with a terabyte, and then that's like your baseline. So you can move up from there. That's just my take on it. Just knowing that how much ProRes takes, and sometimes, you know, when I render videos, it turns out to be like 60 gigabytes at the end. And that's a lot for each video if you think about it. But the 20 core, 48 core, now this is just the next tier up, and I want to show you guys that the next step from here is you go to a 20 core, 64 core GPU, which adds $1,000. So yes, that's a lot of money. I think unless you know that you're going to need 64 core GPU, I would probably say majority of us, 98% of us, maybe 96, 95% of us will be great with the base model. This is more for studio, like Marquez Brownlee. I would think that he would probably benefit from maxing everything out. Not necessarily the 128 gigabyte memory, because I don't even think he's maxed out the other one. I may be wrong. I apologize if I am. So you go 128 gigabyte unified memory, which adds another $800. So now you're plus $1,800 just on those two items, bringing your total up to $5,800. And now look at your storage, and I think that the 1 terabyte SSD storage should have been the base. Apple's going to do what Apple does because that's what they do, and I guess they figure they can make another $200. I mean, I'd rather have just you started off with a terabyte and add $100 to it and call it $20.99 and we're good. But I don't work for Apple, so those kind of go unheard. But if you go all the way to 8 terabyte SSD, now these are the fast SSDs. They're not like the old SSDs that they used to have, where it was faster if you went off and got a third-party SSD and then hooked it up externally. These are actually really, really fast SSDs, and if you can afford it, I would say upgrade as you're ordering or finalizing the machine you want. And that brings it up to $8,000. And this doesn't even include Final Cut. If you want Final Cut or Logic Pro, it just literally comes with the machine and it comes with a plug. You still got to factor in if you want the display, which is another $1,600, and if you want like a keyboard and mouse, which is like another almost $300. So that's something that you got to really think about when you're doing this. Now you can do the same thing with this base model, and it shows you more options. So not only can you go with a 32 core GPU, but you can go all the way up to the M1 Ultra and the top 64, which is $47.99. And to me, I would probably stick with 64 gigabytes of unified memory. I don't think I'd ever go over even 32, but there's a lot of you guys that do. And I don't want to discourage you from that. I don't want, if that's what you use, that's what you use. But even then, you're all the way maxed out with your CPU, GPU, and you got 64 gigabytes of memory. And let's even go to a terabyte. It puts you at $5,000. Of course, not including anything else, but I would think sticking with the base model M1 Max, 10 core CPU, 24 core GPU, I would feel that's good enough, especially for me. 32 gigabytes is good for me. 64, I probably would never use in my lifetime. I don't do any kind of crazy edits yet, but you never know. The thing that I would probably upgrade the most is probably this 512 gigabyte SSD to like at least a terabyte. So you're adding another $200, which call it $21.99, and I think that would be the best spec'd out M1 Ultra or M1 Max Studio. The other thing that came through was this iPad Air, which they included the M1 into this. Kind of crazy, but they did it. So the new color that they came out with was this purple. A lot of people didn't really accept the purple on the last one with the iPad mini, but they decided to put it on the iPad Air, and I think this is 64 gigabytes. I think that's kind of small. And you know what kind of made me angry about this is they start off with 64 gigabytes, but they give you Type C. Come on, Apple. You could have at least started off with 128 Wi-Fi model. You're already at $749, not even including Apple Pencil, Magic Keyboard, or any of that. But you get the Type C, which I'm telling you that it kind of struck a nerve because I have the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and they gave me the Lightning port on a Pro model. But you give the iPad Air Type C? Apple, what are you doing to us? I don't know. They did come out with this green, which I think these two shades of green, I think they're really, really beautiful. And I don't like green. So for me to say that I like this green, man, I think it was really pretty. Really, it would bring a lot of a different selection for phones, especially like if you are someone that likes colorful accessories. So these greens, I like the way they went with this. The iPhone SE. Now the iPhone SE kind of made me giggle a little bit because they look like iPhone 8s. No! And I don't know if that iPhone 8 was their claim to using 100% recycled material. And I said that really fast because even if they did, it's still 100% recycled. They recycled the phone. So technically, yes, that's recycled material. And for all purposes, we'll say that they did good. So this was a very popular design, especially for the time that this came out. And I still think that there's a lot of people that wouldn't mind having a fingerprint reader, even if it was behind the screen or something other than Face ID. And I think that's the way that they were thinking as well, that this was a popular model. Let me go ahead and re-release an iPhone 8, but call it an iPhone SE and raise the price a little bit because, as we all know, inflation and everything is on the rise. Materials cost more, and so, we get the brunt end of it. Overall, I think that they did a very well presentation, keynote. They did hint at one thing that made me excited, but I know that I would never probably buy it because it would be out of my price range for one. But two, I think that it's just a lot for me. I would never use it to its full potential. And they hinted at the Mac Pro, which was like a very small, I don't know if you guys caught it, and they were like, there's just one more machine that we have to transition, and that's for another day. And I just thought that was like a really slick way to say, hey, there's more coming. Be prepared because you thought this was amazing. Wait until we show you guys what we really did for the Pro. I don't think we'll ever see an iPad. I don't think we'll ever see an iMac Pro because they did say there's only one more machine to transfer over. So I think the iMac Pro anyway is probably gone. I think they'll focus more on this new studio name, and then this Pro will be for like professionals. I think that they will also have a huge starting price because I think that, and I'll look back on this video and see if I was right, but I think they kind of figured out a way to not only put two M1 Maxes together, but four M1 Maxes together. So they kind of, to me, they dropped a hint saying that you lose a little bit of performance putting two CPUs together, but they found a way to put two together without losing any performance or very little performance. But I also think that they found a way to put four together without losing performance. So I really want to see what they do because I really think that they already cracked in. They're setting things up for like applications. They are finalizing, tests and performances. And I think that they're on the cusp of perfecting this and just want to make sure before they release it that there's no bugs and everything is almost close to being perfect because this is going to be a Pro machine. So you got to figure the Pro machine has to work. So that little hint and all the little hints behind it, I think that they have it done. It's just not ready yet. Not ready to release anyway. I do think that we'll probably see this at the end of the year of 2022 or maybe even 2023 in March, maybe. So we'll see, especially with like this chip shortage and how it goes. But I really think that this form factor will probably be cut into more than half, and it's going to be a crazy machine that we probably never seen. They really hinted on that. So overall, this keynote was crazy. They started off real easy, Apple TV Plus or Fitness Plus or whatever it was. And then they moved into like the iPhone, the SE. Then they brought colors in. They went to the iPad Air. And then they got really interesting with the Studio and the Mac Studio. So the Studio display and the Mac Studio. And then it was just, they introduced the M1 Ultra. I couldn't even believe it. Like I kept talking to myself and saying, how were they able to do this? But they're feeding their people something great because they're coming out with some crazy, crazy stuff, guys. I think we're going to be excited to see what Apple brings in the future. And even if it's 3 of these chips together, let's say, it's still something that this tech world hasn't seen ever. Anyway, guys, I gotta really look into a Mac Studio. The base model would probably fit me very well, and I think honestly it would fit you guys. A lot of you guys, beginners like myself, or intermediate users that would still benefit from just spending the $400 a year and using that machine for at least 5 years. I don't think that's something that is out of the question. Maybe even a decade. You never know. Like, I have this M1 MacBook Pro, and it eats through 4K. I mean, I don't shoot 8K, one, because I can't afford an 8K camera, but it chews through 4K, no problems. I rarely ever get any stutters, any, missed frames, and I'm excited to see if I get a Mac Studio, what that's capable of for me. I would probably just shoot for the base model for me. If you're kind of like a beginner intermediate user like myself, you're doing this for fun. I do this for fun. I really enjoy staying up on tech news, seeing how I can build machines, seeing how I can push machines to their limits. Well, try to anyway, the best I can. But just knowing that there's machines out here like that blows my mind, guys. And I really hope that you guys were excited, as much as excited for this keynote as I was. I'm really looking forward to the future, especially with technology. I'm really hoping that I'm blessed enough to be able to get a display, even if it's later on down the road, a studio display. It is a 5K display with Thunderbolt stuff, so maybe in the future, maybe within the next year, who knows. But I am going to try to really get onto a Mac Studio, even if it's just a base model with 512 gigabytes of storage, because I do have a NAS and I do have tons of external storage options at my disposal right now. So out of the question, going to 8 terabytes for sure for me. Maybe a terabyte, we'll see. But that was pretty much the peak performance that Apple had released. I'm really excited what this future has for Apple. I think they've done some amazing things in the last 2 years. And I think that we're not even really seeing the best of it yet. And I guess that's why they called it peak performance, kind of 2 different meanings. Yeah, but if we do get one, we'll go ahead, we'll open it up, and then we'll go ahead and test it out and see how we like it. If that's something you're interested in and you want to see this, leave a comment down below and say what you want tested or what you want looked at. Let me know if there's anything that you guys decided on purchasing, if there's anything else that you want to see from Apple. What were some of the not so great things that you looked in this keynote, and what were some of the most odd, jaw-dropping things that happened in this last keynote. Anyway, guys, that's all I got. I gotta go because my back hurts.